This is Everything's Messy podcast. I'm Sarah. So I have a great guest today on this show. Her name is Tiffany Hernandez. She has such a great story, very messy, which we love. And before we get into that, because this is the week of 9/11, very quickly, I want to give a shout out and a thank you to all of our military personnel, all of our law enforcement officers, all of our fire department men and women, paramedics, EMTs, and a very special body of people who I think get overlooked, and those are our 911 dispatchers. Having been one, I think that they are a group that gets overlooked a lot when we think about first responders. When I think about the day of 9/11 and what happened and the calls that came in to Port Authority and NYPD and, from the towers, from the plane, from the people on the street looking at the smoke of the Twin Towers, from all over of what was going on, there was a first point of contact for these people to talk to. And they handled themselves very calmly and professionally, as all of our 911 dispatchers do. But on that day especially, they couldn't see any closure. They had to continue to go from call to call to call to call to continue to send the help where it needed to go, remain calm. And I just don't think they get thanked enough. And having been one, my husband is one, and coming from a family of first responders, I would just like to take a moment and just recognize them along with all of the military and first responders. And I want everyone to know how thankful I am. I'm grateful for where I live and the country that I live in. It always makes me sad when I reflect on 9/11, but I do appreciate all of the wonderful, wonderful first responder personnel. So I just wanted to take a moment and recognize them, and also the military, recognize them and the sacrifices that they have made. Very grateful to everyone. And it's just that week to reflect and be thankful. So getting into our interview today, her name is Tiffany Hernandez. She is just a realm of information and things that she has gone through. And what a mess, right? And with Everything's Messy, I like to find people that have their own mess. She talks about her battle with mold toxicity, and she's still kind of going through that. She talks about having her dream job and walking away from it. She talks about her faith and the challenges there and being obedient. And she talks about all of the things that help her get through when it is so messy. I'm very happy to have her on. I hope you get something out of it. I know I did. She mentions a lot of the herbs that she takes. She mentioned a lot of the enzymes that she took to detox from the mold toxicity. I will try and list all of the things that she has mentioned in the show notes. She also lists her ministries and what she does with that. I will try to get that into the show notes as well. And if you have any questions, please email me everythingsmessy@gmail.com. You can also find me on Facebook, Instagram, and X, which was Twitter, at everythingsmessy. Anything that you would like to know or find out, just send it my way. I will also include her information as well if you have any questions for her. And without further ado, here is Tiffany Hernandez.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so excited
to be here.
Yes, I'm so excited to have you on. So why don't you take us through, maybe start at, getting that dream job and then kind of things that transpired from there.
All right. Yes. So I went to school in interior design, and I knew I wanted to do interior design from 7th grade onward. And I really, really was excited for getting out in the world and getting my career started. First of all, was a hard part. Getting it started was really difficult because I had to jump around from job to job. I went to probably 4 different design jobs till I landed my actual dream career. And it was really hard to leave it because I loved this job. It was everything that I wanted. It was everything that I knew I could do. And I was aspiring to be that next level designer. I wanted to be the manager. I wanted to take on all of the roles and do all of the things. But I had a family. I had a 6-month-old at home that grew up. And by the time I got my dream job, she was about 2 or 3. I had my second son at that point, and I was expected to be super mommy, and I was also expected to be super career woman and super wife
Yeah.
and do all the things at home. It was impossible to keep up everything. So um it
So
was
what,
really hard to keep going.
right. So what ended up happening for you to have to walk away from it?
So I got sick. I had dealt with mold my whole life and never really thought about it. I had mold in my home when I was younger. I had mold in my apartment in college. I had mold in my apartment when we moved back home from college to have my second son. It was very difficult and I didn't recognize it. I didn't know it was a thing until I got sick. And what happened was I started getting panic attacks really bad to the point where it would send me to the emergency room and we couldn't figure out what was wrong. My husband just thought I was overstressed. I'm sure stress had a portion of it, but really it was the mold. And it took me about 2 years or so to determine what was the cause. My mom even paid for me to go to a lifestyle center and they couldn't figure out what was wrong with me, which really made me very depressed because they basically told me that I was just depressed and that I needed to get over some of my childhood traumas or my experiences and trust God more, which is true. We do need to put our trust in God. And I was praying so hard trying to find an answer. I finally got home from that lifestyle center and I had to get blood work done. We didn't have health insurance, so all of this was out of pocket.
Oh my goodness.
And I had to get certain blood work done because they had done my blood work at the lifestyle center, found out I had hypothyroidism going on and I was super anemic. I had lost a bunch of weight. And so I go to this functional doctor because they were recommended to me by one of our church members. And within 5 minutes of being in that office and telling this lady my life story and all the different situations that I had been in, she could tell from the symptoms that I told her I was having and asked me if I maybe thought that I had mold. And I said, what is that? What is mold toxicity? I didn't even know that was a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And sure enough, we got blood work done for inflammation markers and I had high inflammation for mold and we had to detox. So I did about 3 rounds of detox with.
And what does that entail? Is that just like stripping everything from your diet, or are there certain like enzymes that you're taking? What does that entail?
Yes. So I was on several different supplements, which, like we've talked about, I don't get any royalties from anything, but I did take, I believe it was Design for Life supplements. There was a zeolite supplement that I took, and I couldn't even take the dosage that was required for me to start detoxing. I was so toxic that I had to take a quarter of the recommended dosage.
Oh my gosh.
And it took me, I mean, I had head pain that was totally unexplainable and it would send me into these anxiety attacks. I had rage and anger. I was all over the place. Yes, I was stressed. Some other things happened in our marriage when we first got married. We lost my grandmother, his uncle, his grandfather. So we had a lot of deaths in the family
So
that we were
sorry.
dealing with emotionally. Yes, it was very trying and challenging time. And I just had to stuff it because of the fact that I had a child and I had a second child and we were going through life just trying to make ends meet. And that all compounded. So I know that the mold was one thing. I know it was a multi-functional issue. But with the mold detox, I had to take about 3 rounds of detox, which I don't remember all the details of, but between the zeolite, I also had to do some binders where it would bind the toxins and help to flush them out of the system. They wanted me to go on. At that point in my life, I was not doing meat. So I was very much into the vegan lifestyle. And my husband was wanting to go raw vegan, and I thought that was absolutely insane for him. He didn't stay on that, by the way. He just, next week, he's like, hey, can we get some chicken nuggets? I'm over here actually trying to do the vegan thing, and I lost a ton of weight. And I do think that it helped for a short amount of time, but over the long run, I think it was not helpful for me. And I can talk more about that too. But with the diet that they wanted me to do at the functional medicine practice, they wanted me to have a quarter of my plate meat and the rest veggies. And
Okay.
I wasn't willing to do the meat. And they said, well, with what you have going on and the mold that you have, you really should be minimizing all of these other food groups and really push the green leafy vegetables. And I am not the greatest at doing diets or at changing my meal plans. I was, eating way too much sugar, which I still have some issues with, but it was very challenging and I was very stubborn. Now as I look back on it, I wish I would have listened more and done the meat and the veggies because I think it would have really kickstarted me into even more detox and I could have healed faster.
Mm-hmm.
But nonetheless, I did my 3 rounds. I did my binders. I did my zeolite, which grabs all those toxins and gets them out.
And so
And
what's
I
the
was on,
time frame that we're looking at from when you
oh,
start your first round to, and at what point do you like start feeling just a little bit better or that you might come out of it?
okay. So the time frame was several months. I had gone to the lifestyle center in February and I came home and we found out by like March, April, and I detoxed until about May. It was probably at least to the end of the summer, if not going into the fall, like around
Okay.
September, October. And I was finally starting to feel better. All the while this was happening, I had just quit my job from design the year before in December.
Oh my
So December,
goodness.
I quit my job. And then I started homeschooling my kids all at the same time, had no idea what I was doing, had a fairy tale idea about the homeschool, and I was still trying to figure out what was wrong with my health. We also moved from a larger house into a smaller house because we knew we wanted to move out to the country. I mean, these were like compounding things.
Wow.
So
Yeah,
it
definitely
was
compounded stress. I definitely can relate to that. So at what was maybe one of the first things you noticed that you were like, "Oh, I don't have that pain anymore. Oh, I feel better." Or what was one of the first things?
definitely the head pain and the clarity that I used to get these really bad brain fog. I still have it some where I can't find the words that I want to say. And that still happens. It's not as often as it was, but
And when
the
you say head pain, is that like a constant migraine feeling that you're having or just like you'd been hit in the side of the head? Like what kind of pain?
it was more in the lobes, the back lobes of my brain. It wasn't really up front where you would have a migraine. It's more to the side and it was just pressure. It's very hard to explain to the doctors. I had a very hard time telling them. It wasn't like a sharp pain, although I do get sharp pain now on the sides of my head when I go into a moldy or musty space. It's very much it hits me very hard. But I was having very unexplainably weird pain in the sides of my head. And I started noticing that that was going away. I wasn't getting it as often.
Wow.
And my head
That's
was clearer. I mean, when I was doing the zeolite, I will tell you, it was very draining. I could feel it pulling and working, and I was very
that's
exhausted.
amazing. What
Um,
and I'm sure you don't know everything, but is it like is there charcoal in the zeolite? Like what is it grabbing onto to get it out?
so zeolite was actually a liquid. It was a almost like a tincture
Okay.
that you would take, and it was drops, and you would take a certain amount of drops. The binders that I took, they were, I think, charcoal and apple fiber. There was
Okay.
several different things in it, but they worked synergistically together. So the zeolite would pull it out of the cell, and then the binder and filler would actually grab hold of it and pull it out.
Oh, that's amazing. Wow.
So it was a two-step process. Yes.
And so I'm sure you're still very sensitive to mold. Do you still have to
Yes.
take those things now? How long ago was this?
This was
Did you
back in
detox?
2019 is when I
Okay.
did all the detoxing, and I spent way too much money on trying to find doctors to help. Um, I am now learning that there is a lot more to my illness than just the physical part of it. There is an emotional side of things and a mental side of things as well. It's a mindset. So I tend to be a hypochondriac, which my husband was just touting all of my issues up to my hypochondriac self, which some of it, yes, but a lot of it, no. I really did experience these things, and I have been very sensitive my whole entire life.
Yeah, well, yeah, and I would say that having head pain of any kind is not that's not normal. That's
No.
not something you should just be told you have to suck it up and deal with for sure.
Yes.
So do you know the point of contact with the mold? Was that in your house? Was it the area that you were in? What was the point of contact with it?
Yes. So I lived in a house when I was younger. For 17 years of my life, we lived in this house, and there was actually a shed that we added on, but it was not air conditioned. It was where the laundry room was, and there was mold in that building. And I remember thinking or seeing it, oh, what is that? But at that young age, you don't know what it is. And mold wasn't a big thing back then. So I had dealt with it going in and out of there. Although I don't remember smelling the mold as much, it was definitely a musty space. And my mom even said, I think there was black mold in the shower because we had a whole bathroom, like a half bath with a shower and a toilet and everything in where the laundry room was. And then I got reintroduced to it again in college. It was in my apartment, and we even cleaned it with bleach, which is a big no. You do not clean mold with bleach.
Yeah,
I had
doesn't
no
that make
idea.
that makes it grow more, doesn't it? Yeah.
It disperses all of the pores, so you're basically just throwing it back into the into the atmosphere. And I had, like I said, I had no idea. I mean, we had masks on and we were cleaning all of that, but then again, I had it in our apartment when we moved back after I graduated from college. We had a window that would leak, and so underneath my daughter's bed, I was storing all of my new baby's diapers and things, and it had seeped into the carpet. And there was this big, I mean, I was looking for the diapers. I'm like 7 or 8 months pregnant, mind you, and I
My
move all these
gosh.
diapers out from under my daughter's bed, and there's this big spot of mold on the carpet and up the wall. And I'm calling our landlord saying, we got to move. This is ridiculous. So needless to say, 8 months pregnant, and we're moving back into my parents' house, scrambling to get everything out of the house so
I
they
can't
can.
even imagine.
Yes.
So in your childhood house, was anyone else afflicted by the mold that was there?
I think my parents both have some of it. They don't seem to have as many issues as I do. I don't know if it's because of their genetics or allergies or whatnot. I do know from what I've learned about vaccines and things that I have gotten that could have also affected me and made my immune system act differently, since we've gotten more than they have gotten.
Sure. Yeah. That's
Um,
probably a big part of it. Yeah.
yes.
And so when you moved back in with your parents, was it into the same house or were they in a different house at that point?
No, we had moved. They had moved. By the time I was in high school, we had moved to a new house, and there was no mold in that
Okay.
house. So it was really a blessing that we were able to move out of our apartment into their house. But I couldn't stay there, so we got our own place after that, and that house didn't have any mold. But because of all of the
Sure.
longevity of the
And
mold
probably the
exposure,
buildup, right? The
yes,
buildup that's in your just compounding after it. And yeah, I just can't even imagine. Wow.
yes,
All right. So you said 2019 is when this started. So now it's
yes.
2023. So um talk about, like, do you follow a special diet now? Do you have still the enzymes or things that you take with it now?
So I have gone through several renditions of different types of supplements and different um, dieting plans, I would say. I have gone full circle from vegan to vegetarian to eating back meat and dairy. I still don't feel like I'm still dealing with health challenges. And that's been interesting. But
Are they related to the mold or just?
yes, so we're back in a house with mold.
Oh no.
And it's a old 100-year-old farmhouse. My parents moved up here. We're now in Tennessee. We were in Florida. We moved to Tennessee. They moved actually 2020. Yeah, end of 2019, they moved up to Tennessee, and they let us come on their property, and we're living in the house. They're living in their RV, and the house was dealing with mold for quite a long time because every time it rains, it puddles underneath the house, and there's no vapor barrier, so it was just pulling all the way up through the house. We did try to get that remediated, and they have spent thousands of dollars trying to make the house livable, but we can still smell it. And so I have a dehumidifier constantly running and whatnot. But because of that, I have a lot of supplements that I'm still taking. I take colloidal silver frequently. We make our own. So it's because it's so expensive.
And what does that do for you? What is
that is another one like zeolite. It pulls those toxins out of your system and helps to detox.
Okay.
It's not as strong as zeolite, and it helps with a myriad of issues. There's a lot of people that don't like it, and they say, oh, that's hogwash and that's not safe to take, and you're putting metals in your body and this, that, and the other. But we have had several viruses that were recently very touchy subject, and we took colloidal silver, and they helped clearing out lungs. I know I have lung issues because of all of the mold, and that has helped clear it up. Along with other things, I've taken several herbs like Mulyang and stinging nettle. I now take a digestive enzyme every day with my meals when I remember. And I'm also taking Phenegreek to help with breastfeeding and all those other things because I'm nursing.
Sure.
I have a bee pollen. Bee pollen is like super nutritious. It's one of the best things you can take. So I try to keep my regimen on a steady, but sometimes it doesn't happen. And I do know too, your body can get used to taking things, so you do need to take a break.
Sure.
So
yeah,
it
builds up a tolerance.
Yeah. Yes. So I have rotated. I'll rotate from dandelion root to milk thistle, even though they're helping somewhat similar items, and then I'll take quercetin and bromelain, but then I'll just take my plant enzyme instead and rotate those since they're both helping with digestion.
That's incredible. You definitely are going through the mess. So
yes,
talk a little bit about how you find your strength to get through the mess, because I feel like it's still ongoing for you, and so there's still things you're dealing with it. So how do you get that strength, that positive mindset to continue to go through the mess?
I really have to cling to Jesus. That's my saving grace, right? Like I pray a lot, and I do surround myself with positive people to keep me uplifted. And honestly, doing all of the work that I'm doing with our homeschool community and my children, like that is keeping my mind busy and off of my problems, because I know they're going to be there regardless.
Sure.
And I went through a really dark time when we first moved to Tennessee. We had no community. We were transplants. I had no identity. I lost, who I was. And I had never really gone through a winter. It was my first time going through all the different seasons. I'm from Florida. Okay. It's like 95 degrees every day. I don't know what it is like to have snow on the ground, and it's gray outside.
I can relate.
What's that?
I can relate. Definitely.
Yes. Definitely. So it has been, I have gone through the ringer and back. We got COVID too. So that I really had to pray, because I did not think I was going to make it. My lungs were so bad, but I was not going to go to the hospital. That's for sure. So, prayer time, I would say, is really big for me. I don't pray as much as I would like to, but I'm always talking to the Lord and asking for guidance and direction. And he always brings me just what I need right when I need it.
That's awesome. I love that. All right. So let's kind of circle back a little bit. So leaving your dream job, having to deal with this illness, I know you had sort of mentioned that it was also a calling that you felt to leave the corporate world. And so talk a little bit about what were you called to do and how that felt to have to leave your dream job.
Yes. Okay. So there's a lot that goes into that. We were also searching a lot in scripture and doing Bible studies very deep. We had found some church history that wasn't strongly talked about in the church that we were going to. And we really felt called to not only learn this truth that was from what the pioneers started when they first initiated this church, to learning what is happening now. So we call ourselves back to the pioneer time because that calling goes with that. And I was really searching, and God spoke to me a lot about several things. He told me that I would be feeding his sheep, and that I basically, like, he asked Peter to do, go feed my sheep. If you love me, feed my sheep, right? And that is what I felt the call to do. And I'm like, Lord, how do I do this? I'm doing design. I'm doing what I love to do. I don't see how these two things fit together. And he really called me out and said, you need to homeschool. You need to stay home with your kids. Homeschool was not on my radar at all when I was going to have my career and my dream job. I was going to have my kids in school like everybody usually does. And no, he said, no, you're being called out. I have a plan for you. I had no idea what that looked like at that point, but I felt that tug on my heart that I needed to do something for him. And I didn't feel like design was that thing. He let me kind of run my life and say, okay, you want to do that? That's fine. You go do your thing, and I'll wait for you to stumble and fall. And I did. And it was a very bad fall. However, it brought me right back to him. Even though I was religious this whole time and a Christian this whole time, I was definitely doing what I thought I wanted to do instead of what he called me to do. And I have done children's ministries ever since I was a kid. That was something that really brought me joy, but I also felt that calling way back when I was a teenager. So when he said, hey, you're going to stay home, I at first did not want to accept that. I didn't want to do it. But as time progressed and I got sicker, I didn't see a way that I could keep going in the direction that I wanted to go with being as sick as I was.
So definitely acceptance and obedience, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Those are big.
Yes.
And I'm not sure. I mean, we all strive to be obedient, but I'm not sure I think a lot of times, I know me especially, I come up short in that area.
Absolutely. Yes. And I would say too, he's not calling us to do more than he qualifies us to do. And that's big for me because I always have had a self-worth and a self-confidence issue of, well, I have to go get a license for that, and I have to go get certified. Nobody's going to listen to me. I don't know what I'm talking about. They're not going to listen because X, Y, and Z, whatever excuse I have. And I mean, none of the apostles had a theology degree, and they're out there doing it.
That's 100%
so
correct.
We?
Yeah, 100%. Definitely. So then the obedience part to then do a ministry, talk a little bit about that.
So it didn't happen right away. I did tell my boss that, and I cried leaving because it was very hard to leave the job that I wanted so desperately to have, that I finally had acquired. It's like I had made the accomplishment and then I had to leave it. And it was almost like leaving my old self behind and being made anew in Christ.
That's
even
incredible.
though I had been baptized from when I was, 12 years old. But anyways, I told my boss that I was leaving and that we were planning to move to Tennessee, and we were planning to do, like, I was speaking this into existence before it had even really happened. We had been talking about it, and we knew that it was eventually that's the direction we wanted to go, but we had no idea that it was literally right around the corner. And so
that gives me chills. That's so incredible.
Yes. No, God's hand is all over this story. And I didn't even really when we got started doing ministry, I didn't even connect the dots. It just happened. We were supposed to come up here just to visit my mom, and I was helping her to do a health expo because she does health. She's a physical therapist and she does health and wellness. And that didn't happen because COVID happened and whatnot. But later in that year, since everything had been closed, we wanted to get out and do some literature evangelism. We do a lot of books. We have a lot of Christian devotional books and things that we hand out to bring the gospel to the people. And I don't even remember how I got the idea or where it came from to go to a festival and pass out books. I think it was because, now that I'm thinking about it, we have a yard sale here in Tennessee. It's a very famous yard sale. It's called the 411 yard sale, and it's like 2 weeks long of people coming out, and they pitch a tent in a yard sale on the road. And it goes all the way from Georgia up into Kentucky.
Oh, wow.
The whole entire road. It's a very big yard sale. And at that yard sale, I'm like, oh yes, let's do the yard sale and we'll have books there. Well, at the yard sale, I think what happened was we found somebody came and said, oh, you guys should set up because we're having, a festival down the road at such and such a time. And that is how the whole ministry started, was just from a connection like that. And I got the idea in my head to think, oh, this is how we can bring the gospel to the people. We go to the festivals and we go to them instead of just, waiting for them to come to church. And it really happened very much serendipitous. We would go to a festival and find out about another festival, and I'd be last minute calling the coordinators saying, hey, do you have any spaces open? And they're wanting to know who you are, and they're wanting a name, and they're wanting all this information. And I'm thinking to myself, I don't have a name. We're just a family that's passing out books. Like, what? So I finally came up with a name. It's called Tender Heart Ministries. I came up with what we have available. We're a family outreach ministry, and we're leading tender hearts back to Christ. That's our whole motto, our whole goal. And I got a 501c3 nonprofit account, so we are official. And that didn't happen right away, but it happened so organically that I didn't want to not do it. And everybody was so thankful and appreciative that we were out preaching.
Oh, I can
but
imagine.
Not in a preachy way.
Right. No, I can imagine. And just hearing the dominoes sort of come into place for your timing and just how it all came to be. That's fantastic. Yes. All right. So Tender Heart Ministries. And then do you have a way, if people want to reach out to you, that they can contact you?
Yes. You can reach out to us at tenderheartgospel@gmail.com. And we are on Facebook. Our handle is Tender Heart Ministry. And we have a website that I'm working on, but it's not ready just yet.
Okay. All right. On Facebook. Okay. I'll make sure that I post those in our show notes for sure. And I think your story is so incredible. I really do. And I just think the way it's all kind of laid out, and definitely it has not been easy. You've definitely had, to suffer and go through hardships. And that's the way that you're able to just keep going on, and you believe in what you're doing and the things that you need to get done, and being obedient. Like, that's a huge lesson. Is there anything else that you wanted to add? Anything you want to go back to really quick, or?
Well, I would say our homeschool community really came another serendipitous out of that, because although we were going to the festivals and doing all these crafts and free things at the festival, I got it into my head. Well, there's two things. There's two parts. We, again, found another homeschool group. They invited us to come, which I really needed some support. And I didn't realize that I needed that support until I had found that. And I was bringing all these people that we were meeting at the festivals to this one homeschool group. And the group leader was getting full of people. She couldn't have any more people. So she really encouraged me to start my own co-op and my own group. And so out of all of the ministry side, we birthed a homeschool co-op. So now that is really where our ministry is, boots on the ground. We still go to the festivals to meet the people and share what we have, but I am going to eventually start teaching people how to start their own homeschool communities because of how it has impacted my life and my child's lives and my husband, my whole family, and all of the families that we have impacted has been benefited by this co-op. So I strongly always suggest for those who are just starting out, which I can coach homeschool families as well, starting out because I had nobody. So I'm very passionate about
Me
that.
either. Yes, I definitely can relate to that.
I can get them on the right track because I knew nothing and we had a very rocky start. But also plugging into a homeschool. And if you don't have one in your area, how to start one yourself.
I think, first of all, kudos to, being obedient, doing your ministry, definitely homeschooling. I know just in and of itself, that is a big hurdle to jump into. Yeah. Do you find any time or do you try to make time for yourself and just how, do you attentively think, okay, I need to de-stress or I need a moment? Like, what are you doing that you can take care of you?
Absolutely. So I do struggle in that to find time for myself. I am a all the time busy kind of person. I'm a type A person. I will admit to that. But I do take time in the evening, and I don't know, scrolling through Facebook is fun for me because I like to reach out to people and I'm actually interactive. I don't just watch what people are doing. I'm in several different groups. I connect with several different business women and podcasters alike to find different things that are interesting to me. And I also take time to read when I can. I'm always learning. That is my thing for me, is to learn something new. No matter what it is, I'm always trying to find something that I enjoy. Right now, I'm reading a book about homeschooling, and I also have a book about mindset. And then I picked up a book about the United States Constitution because, I didn't really pay attention in government class. So I'm relearning a lot of things that I
That's
didn't
fantastic.
learn.
That's amazing. Definitely. I'm a US history geek, so I can definitely relate to just picking up the Constitution reading.
Yes. It was $5 at Five Below. I couldn't leave it there.
No, you couldn't. Not at all. That's awesome. All right. So tell me something that kind of is funny that's happened to you through all of this, something that you can share that sort of, I always say if we can't laugh through the mess, we're going to be, it's going to hurt because laughter is just one of those things you have to have. So give me something that you can laugh either at yourself about or just the situation.
Yes. So our trip up to Tennessee during COVID, I mean, we picked up, I was coming up to help my mom, at around that February mark when COVID was just coming out, and I was planning to stay to help her and then go back home. Well, we never left. So we came up here in February and then we moved at the end of it all. COVID borders were going to be closing and all the mess. We ended up canceling the expo, and I'm driving back to Florida to get a U-Haul and pick up all of our stuff in 2 days before they were supposedly going to close the state, and left my husband there. It was a mess. But on the way back coming up to Tennessee, my mom's driving my Tahoe. I'm driving the 20-foot, or was it 20-foot? I think a 20-foot U-Haul with my trailer attached to it, which was like I think it was a 12-foot or something. I don't know. I think it's 6x12 or something like that. It's a smaller trailer. And I get stuck in the gas station. I mean, I pull up to the gas station because I needed gas. I'm right at the end of Georgia coming into Tennessee. And I somehow pulled in between the post where you have the gas station markers separated. So I had to, thankfully, somebody came along because I was so not happy with myself, but we had to unhitch my trailer. And this guy out of nowhere, they unhitched my trailer for me. I mean, I was super stuck. I couldn't I couldn't move forward because I would have rolled over the gas station pump with my trailer, and I couldn't move backward because the trailer hitch would touch the post that was, you know, there to protect the gas station
Oh
pump.
my
I was
goodness.
I was really pinned in there, and it was a really bad, it wasn't a big gas station. It had like two pumps.
Oh,
It was this
geez.
little hole in the wall gas station. Thankfully, this guy came. He was able to unhitch it, put it onto his truck. We had to drive around to the Walmart right next by, and then back the trailer back up and hitch the trailer back. It was crazy, but I would say it was my first time driving a U-Haul too. And then to not just drive the U-Haul, but drive the U-Haul with a U-Haul.
Yeah,
I
with
mean,
the
it was
trailer.
two
Yeah.
trailers on it.
Oh
So
my
yes,
goodness. So,
that
but
was,
you were able to laugh and get
yes,
through it, right?
yes. My husband and my dad were definitely laughing at me. They're like, "How did you do this?" And I didn't get a picture. I should have. It was it was quite a mess. We were we were sweating bullets, but looking back at it, you know, my kids are laughing at me, so it's a good thing when your kids can
My
laugh.
kids always laugh at me.
Yes.
So, but I think maybe that's a little kind of art imitates life in a way, right? Where just all of the
Yes.
back and forth and everything that you've struggled with and had to go through and try this and oh, that didn't work, back up, let's try this. Like that kind of,
Yes.
you know, brings it all full circle, right? And just
Yes.
having those challenges. So I have just absolutely enjoyed having you. You are such an inspiration and you are still are going through it. And I think, you know, in a little bit, I'd love to have you back on and kind of talk about where you've come from there, what you're doing. We get into a little more about the mold and the specifics of that. And I think other people would like to hear
Yes.
that too. So you've been wonderful.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for coming on. And I hope to talk to you soon.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me.